Welcome to Discussions with Energy Leaders. I just want you to know I'm thrilled today to have Rob Roy with us. Rob is the Chief Investment Officer for Advent Health. He's also the co-leader in charge of sustainability. And Advent Health has over 56 hospitals throughout the nation, over 90,000 employees. And it's just someone I became aware of a while back, and I followed him on LinkedIn and through the interviews he's given and a lot more. But with that, Rob, welcome. We're so pleased to have you with us today.
Thank you very much, Bill. It's lovely to be here. This is important work to talk about this and explain how we've been on our journey and what we can do to be helpful to others.
Rob, as I mentioned to you one time in the past, I'm the former chair of the Advent Health, and it was Florida Hospital at the time, the Altamont Foundation Board. And I'm a huge proponent of your mission statement and what Advent Health does to serve our community and also the country. Will you please talk a little bit about how the Advent Health mission statement ties in with your commitment to sustainability?
Certainly. And first of all, thank you for your service. Our community foundation boards are a very important part of the work that we do. You know that firsthand by leading one of those groups. And so I just wanted to thank you for your involvement, your leadership in that space.
Thank you.
The mission of Advent Health is extending the healing ministry of Christ. And our tagline is Feel Whole. We want to bring wholeness and a feeling of wholeness to all of our communities and all of those that we serve. And so on the face of it, we are a medical care group. Patients show up to us either for well care visits or when they're sick or in emergency needs. And, you know, the front line of our business is caring for people in that medical setting. But one of the things that we realized several years ago was that it's not just the work that you do, but how you do it has an impact as well. Then any organization operating as a business has an impact on the environment, and the environment's going to have an impact on that business. And so we started to realize that how you do your work is oftentimes just as important as the work you do. And so we began to focus on how can we be an even bigger benefit or a bigger blessing to our communities? How can we extend that mission beyond the geographic areas in which we have hospitals so that we can serve others and serve them in a better way? So that's how environmental sustainability ties very closely with our mission. From a faith-based perspective as well, we're to bring, extend the healing ministry of Christ, to bring that Christian care. And when God created the world, when he created humans, he gave us two jobs, essentially. One is to worship and glorify him, and two is to take care of each other and the planet that he made. And so it also ties in with our understanding of what our responsibilities are. And these resources that we've been given, our responsibility to care for those and to care for our community in the way that we handle those. So we feel there's a very tight alignment between healthcare and environmental sustainability.
Wonderful. You know, from the first time I looked you up on LinkedIn, which is a wonderful tool, I was fascinated by the statement on your page, born at 326.42 parts per million. As someone who was born at 313.7 parts per million, will you please elaborate on what born at that particular part per million means and how that milestone has changed for babies who are born today?
Yeah, sure. And if you have a smaller number, you might think that you're younger than me, but unfortunately, it's the opposite in this case. So sorry about that, Bill. It's, I wish that I had come up with it, but as any good idea, I saw it somewhere else. I saw it on somebody's LinkedIn page, and I forget who it was. I knew immediately what it meant, but I wrote to them and I said, "Hey, I love this. Would you mind if I did it on my page as well?" And they graciously said, "Of course not. Here's a link to figure it out." But the Mauna Loa Observatory in Hawaii for the last several decades has taken daily readings of the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And it's measured in parts per million. And there's some seasonal tendencies to it. So if you look at it during the year, it goes sort of up and down. But over time, that concentration has gone up and up and up. And so what this means, being born at 326, is like on the day that I was born, the concentration of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere was about 326. Today, that number is well over 400, And the consequences of that rising concentration are serious, and the world's starting to wake up to what that means and what we can do about it. So it's just, whenever you have a brief moment to catch somebody's interest, having a little hook like that kind of makes you think for a second, I thought was ingenious on the other person's part. So I borrowed it. It sounds like you've done it too.
I love it. And needless to say, you're exceedingly accomplished. And I'm amazed at your education background, including a BS in finance, an MSc in financial markets and trading, a BA in applied mathematics, and a PhD in finance. However, I was intrigued by the last one I saw, and I just recently saw it on LinkedIn within the last year. You've got just obtained a master's degree in sustainability from Harvard University. What led you to do that?
Well, I guess you see it after the fact, but I'm just a super curious person, and it shows up in lifelong learning. I think the smartest people ask the best questions. They don't necessarily have the answers, but they ask the best questions. I also, as I've gotten later in my career, I do enjoy leading and I do enjoy a difficult question, but I'm more comfortable as a leader when I have some framework for how to think about the issues and some level of technical expertise. And so 4 years ago, when our board decided that this was going to be one of the 10 most important things for the company to focus on, the CEO and CFO had to pick a couple of leaders. And they picked Marisa Faribault, our Chief Supply Chain Officer, and myself to lead the environmental sustainability work. And I said to them at the time, I said, look, first of all, I'm thrilled that the company is going to focus on this. I'm probably even more thrilled that you've asked me to do it. But if you put the word on a spelling test, I might miss it. And I would really like to fill it in. And I thought, well, I can try to fill in my knowledge gap, which was huge at this point, by just asking as many questions as possible. And I'll still and always do that. Yeah. But I could also do it by finding a structured learning approach that would give me an ability to see the framework for the issues, get some technical depth of knowledge, and build a network of friends. Because in this space where we're all trying to learn and grow, phone a friend is an incredibly helpful approach. Fortunately, there are a number of programs that are starting to pop up post-COVID with the maturity of online programs. Many of these programs are available for working professionals like myself. I know Cambridge has one, Duke's got one. They're starting to pop up in great schools all across the country and around the world. But being from Boston, the one at Harvard really caught my eye. And so I started to dig into that, see what it would take. And over the course of the last couple of years, went through the 10 classes that were needed to get that. In any good educational experience, you're going to learn something, but it's really the cohort of students and the network of professors who are also learning and trying to figure out how to apply this. That group has been my lifeline so many times when we're looking at new issues. I can go on my little WhatsApp chats and talk to all my CSO friends now about, hey, how are you doing this? Or here's what we're doing. Or are you going to be at this conference? I'd love to meet up again. And it's been wonderful from all those aspects.
Yeah, I'm fascinated because you're the chief investment officer for one of the nation's largest faith-based health systems. And from the information I saw, it includes overseeing capital employee retirement portfolios, including approximately $20 billion. It just seems like a Herculean task. However, you and Marisa also co-lead Advent Health's environmental work and sustainability work. To an outsider, that seems like two completely disparate and overwhelming tasks. How do those tasks tie together for a health system with over 50 hospitals and over 90,000 employees nationwide?
Yeah, well, first of all, let's call out our teams. If the work were really to be done by Marisa and I, there'd be a lot less that was actually getting done. But the role of the leader is to, set reality, like what is the vision of where we're going to go, build the teams to allow that to happen, and then furnish those teams with the with the tools that they need to get that done. So there's a lot of people that enable this work to happen. We just happen to fill these two components, those teams. When we started to measure, because the first step in a journey is to understand what are the issues and then how do we measure where we are today. When we measure doing our scope 1, 2, and 3 carbon accounting, what we found for a health system is that scope 1 is maybe 5% of your total. So emissions that are under your direct control and on your campus are probably around 5% of your total emissions. Another 10% is your scope 2, which is the emissions attributable to electricity, to purchased electricity. Okay. The other 85% is about 35% coming from the supply chain and 50% coming from financed emissions, or what we call scope 3 category 15. Okay. And so, if you're really going to drive emissions down to net zero, it's that 85% between supply chain and finance that you've got to work out. Now, there's a lot of fortuitous things that have happened in our journey. One, starting from the board and our C-suite, being fully bought in, that allows us to kind of have a downhill, we're moving the ball down the hill on this work. But the other one was, without anybody knowing what our emissions composition would be, they picked the two leaders almost inadvertently that were responsible for almost all of that. And it's not just a funny story, because when we talk to our peers, they don't come from supply chain or investments. And so their ability to influence those areas of their organizations are limited, because it's not in the primary mandate of the chief investment officer, typically, or the chief supply chain officer, to do anything about emissions. So now you have this outside person trying to get them to care about something that isn't in their primary focus. In our case, you've got the two people that are responsible. Their areas are responsible for 85%. We have direct impact into how we're going to do that work. It was just another really sort of fortunate step in our journey, was the selection of Marisa and I to help lead this.
This has been fascinating. Thank you so very much. We'll continue this conversation next month with much, much more. And we hope you'll come back and join us as listeners to find out more about what Rob and his team and everyone at Advent Health is doing.